Well, there it is again. Woo!
Gotta love it.
Gotta love it every day. Full of energy all the time. Well, we got a great topic today, but we got a special guest all the way from Colorado. Leona, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Richard and John. I'm super excited.
You still got snow out there?
A little bit. It snowed a little bit yesterday, and it was 75 the day before, and I think it's going to be 75 again today. So Colorado is real weird. So there could be pockets of snow, but then people are still wearing like flip-flops and shorts.
I have a brother that used to live in Colorado Springs, and when I went out to visit him, I was amazed because literally in one day I encountered 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's Colorado. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Well, it's the last day of March. Guess what tomorrow is? April Fool's Day. So don't get psyched out by something. Somebody's going to call you and say,
It's
April
bound to
Fool's.
happen.
You know that. Never catch me. Never, ever. My mom tries every year.
Did you see the Volkswagen April Fools?
No.
They made an announcement that they were changing the name of the U.S. Volkswagen operations. They were replacing the K with a T to make it Volkswagen. And it was all an April Fool's prank.
Oh, hey, Leona, we'll give him the gong on that. Let's gong it.
Yeah, it was bad.
I
I didn't make it up. Hey, don't shoot the messenger.
No, it's all good. So I'm here with my sidekick, John, and Leona. Give us a little bit about yourself. Tell us in 2 minutes what you are doing right now in the staffing industry. I know you're part of ASA Central and ASA Family, which I love that. So it's all yours.
I am an ASA junkie, I will say. So my name's Leona Williner. I own Front Range Staffing. We staff for all over Colorado. So primarily we do about half admin and then half light industrial. So we've been really, really busy trying to fill jobs and find candidates. Kind of been a little difficult recently, but we're trucking right along. I've been in staffing myself for over 20 years. And kind of dating myself, but I love it. I love everything about staffing, from the client relationships to the employee relationships. I love the highs and lows. It's never a dull moment in staffing. It's definitely a roller coaster, and I happily get onto that roller coaster every single day.
Well said. Well, you're not dating yourself with this crowd, because we can all share in that tenure there. So you're with friends.
Yeah, we're mature adults. That's the proper name, right? Mature.
At least
I don't know if I consider myself mature, but
before we jump into our topic, I have something I wanted to present to both of you. Something that's big. We see this on ASA Central. We see this across the board. Struggles, John and Leona. So my theory on this and how I overcome it was struggles equal strategies. Tell me what you think about that. You have to have a strategy when there's a struggle to overcome it.
You're saying struggles like just in the day-to-day?
Struggles in the day-to-day, struggles in recruiting, a little bit of everything. You got to put a strategy together. Am I right?
Well, of course. And I think struggles also equal opportunity, because when you have adversity, there's always a chance to come through the adversity even better than before you entered the adversity. So I agree with you there. You got to have a plan. You got to have a strategy for how you're going to get through it and what you're going to do. You can't just say, well, we'll figure something out. You got to have a path, and then you've got to commit to executing it, and with the understanding that, that path you go down might not work. So you might have to redirect, but you've got to have a strategy to pursue based on the knowledge and the data that you have.
Oh, absolutely. The struggle is real, and it's been real for even before COVID, unfortunately. And yeah, you have to have a strategy, definitely, but you have to be able to pivot and change. And that's where we are right now. We're constantly trying to reinvent ourselves, find what works, what's new. The old ways are dead. People, applying the way that they used to are gone. They're all hiding under rocks now. And we're just trying to figure out how to find those rocks and lift them up and find these people that are not really applying for jobs.
You bring up a good point, Leon, in the sense that the key to success in any industry, and ours is no exception, is really adapting. There's some fundamentals that you never lose sight of as far as how you approach the business, but how you execute, you've got to change with the times. You've got to adapt to the changing landscape. And if you don't do that, it's not to say you won't be successful, but you won't be as successful as you probably could be.
You just summed it up, John. Adapt equals achieve. I say it all the time. all over the world.
Yep.
I just wanted to reach out about that because I see a lot of people struggle and stuff like that. So reach out to us because there are strategies for all of us and we're all here to help each other. Am I right? That's the big thing about ASA and everybody in the staffing industry. We're here to help each other.
Yep. And you're right. You've got to have a strategy. And if you're not sure what to do, to your point, Richard, reach out to someone that you trust and whether it's a mentor, your manager, whoever it might be, and get some help. To help yourself work through whatever you're going through. We've all been through it. Staffing is a series of highs and lows. It's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And the key is just to stay the course and get through it, but know how you're going to do it. Yeah, that's for sure.
John, is there lows? I'm high all the time on life.
You are.
I bet you are. I guarantee that.
Lows.
You should have a broadcast of you having a bad day. I wonder what that would look like.
It's probably about 30 seconds.
I was going to say, it's not going to be long.
Well, I just want to reach out to that. So now our topic of the day. This is exciting, John. So I know John's got this in his book, probably, one of the chapters, right?
Of course.
Of course. That's where we get a lot of this stuff from, is one of John's books, which I just have to say congrats. I seen it on Amazon. It's like number 8 in recruiting books, maybe 7.
It's spent a lot of time in general in the sales realm, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
It's spent a lot of time in the top 100, which is great. I'm really happy that it's impacted a lot of careers. So,
which book is that, John? I'm not familiar.
It's called Money Makers.
Money Makers. Okay.
Yep. And it's all about the fundamentals of recruiting, and there are 52 and a couple bonus ones, 52 fundamental principles in there. The idea is you implement one a week over the course of a year to ensure that you're practicing and perfecting the fundamentals of recruiting. And it's all designed to help you do your business a little bit more efficiently and thus make you more money.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to order it right away as soon as we get off of this.
Oh, aren't you?
Look at that.
I love staffing books. I'm a junkie. I tell you.
Very good.
Our topic of the day. This is so true to all of us. What are we doing? We're recruiting for talent, not for jobs. John, I'm going to let you lead into this, and then we'll just have our group discussion. If anybody's out there, jump in on the conversation too. We want to hear from you.
I'm psyched to get Leona's perspective on this because we recruit in different verticals, so to speak. So I'm always curious as to how things translate into different verticals. The whole concept behind this one, Richard, is, recruiters, obviously we have to fill jobs. So it's always a matter of, all right, what are the hot jobs? And let me make sure I recruit to fill those hot jobs. Mm-hmm. But you've always got to have an inventory of candidates with a wide variety of backgrounds because you don't know when they're going to be needed or when you're going to need to tap into them. So if I'm let's say I'm an accounting recruiter and I know that staff accountants are what I need to fill right now, but 2 months from now, I might need senior accountants. So if all I do is recruit to focus on the jobs I have open now, staff accountants, I've got no one in my senior pipeline. And as a recruiter, my philosophy has always been when a job comes in, you should be able to say, in my network, in my book of business, I have someone that can do that job, or I have someone that knows someone that can do that job. Because the more you have to restart from scratch a search to find people every time, if you're doing that, you're going to come up short. You're not going to get the candidates in front of the client in time. So I would say recruit for talent. Whatever your vertical is, always be talking to folks in that vertical, regardless if you have jobs for them or not. Obviously, you got to fill the jobs, but don't just recruit for the jobs. Always circulate yourself throughout the talent in your vertical.
Oh, I totally agree. You have got to be a proactive recruiter to survive, not a reactive one. And so many times, and it doesn't really matter what industry it's in, if you are not proactively talking to people that you don't have a job for right now, you're definitely going to be behind the game when it comes to your competition filling jobs because they're doing that. So it's really hard right now to not be reactive because of the market that we're in, though. There just are not a lot of people looking for work. And I think maybe that relationship building, for more of the executive placements definitely, comes into play for you. And we do that as well. But for us, people that are looking for work, they're gone in 30 seconds if you don't get them right then and there. And so, we're constantly, just massaging our ATS and the people that have applied with us previously and keeping in contact. And I know you're working right now, but, keep in mind that, we're always looking. So if your job doesn't work out, your situation changes, keep in touch with us. So we really try to do that. But I definitely, for our executive positions, try to keep in touch with people of power, try to keep in touch with people with really good skills. So you never know when you're going to need them. And, then they'll at least know who you are and you can have that conversation.
It's interesting. So I love the fact that you keep in touch with folks in you said massaging your ATS, which is, whether you call it massaging it or mining it, whatever it might be, that's something that recruiters never want to do because it takes time, because it takes effort. But really, that's your go-to. If you've got an ATS, a repository of people that, again, you can either place or they can lead you to people that can place. Those are great calls to make. So yeah, even though someone's working, that's a great call to say, hey, we're just keeping in touch, just making sure you're okay. By the way, who do you know that does this? And what's your future look like? Are you looking to transition, looking to stay? Love the fact that you and your team do that. It's a situation where I always tell folks, if you can't decide within 10 seconds whether or not you think you can place that person, just pick up the phone and call them. There's no such thing as a bad phone call. I think we'd all agree. I mean, that's our business. We're the business. We have conversations for a living, and we gather information. So if, like right now I'm in healthcare, and if someone is saying, all right, my focus, I need to recruit intensive care nurses for this region. Well, if I come across an operating room nurse, I should still call that person because A, I'm going to need that person at some point down the line, and B, they probably know ICU nurses. So it's all a matter of how you approach it. Don't be tunnel vision, cast a wide net, and there's more than one purpose to a phone call, so to speak.
Absolutely. I do a lot of recruiting on LinkedIn as well for some positions, and some of the best candidates and the best response that I get is just by messaging someone that already has a job and they are happy and asking them for referrals. This chain, it just starts this chain reaction. And I've got some of the best people for those types of positions that way, just by reaching out to people who are actively, on LinkedIn, but not in a way that they're looking for employment. But, good people usually have good references and good referrals too.
Great point.
So true. Now, I'm behaving myself because I'm being a little quiet today. But no, all joking aside, communication is the number one thing. But I think the big thing is if you don't have a job for that candidate, you can market them. Everybody I see out there, a lot of recruiters say, these are the 5 jobs I have, and they box themselves in. Don't box yourself in, recruiters. If you see somebody with talent, reach out to companies that might match that and say, hey, I got a candidate here, might be a fit. It works a lot of times. What do you think, John?
Totally. There's so many placements I made over the course of my career when no job existed. You just meet with a good candidate. And that's often recruiters, sometimes they can't get it out of their head as to, all right, well, how can I call this person if I don't have a job for them? And it's hard to get them to think outside the box, say, no, you're missing the point here. You're a recruiter. You're always recruiting talent. And the best recruiting call you can make and the best recruit you can make really is when you get someone that's not looking for a job. Just like the best client call you can have is when the client's not looking to hire. If you position yourselves for that longer term success down the road and you get a good candidate, you find out what's important to them. And if they would move, what would they go for? And you proactively call those hiring managers and you market that person's background to say, hey, I've got someone like this. How could this person benefit your team? Could this talent add value to what you currently have? Does it complement? And again, you're calling with a product. So it's also a really good way to do a marketing call from a client development standpoint. Instead of just calling saying, got any jobs I can help with? You're calling saying, hey, I've got this person, this real live human being. How can they add value to your team? And then even if there's no need right then, now you've opened up a conversation with that person. So there's a number of reasons and benefits why that should take place. I don't know your thoughts on that, Leona.
Oh, absolutely. I love doing that. So in some industries, it's feast or famine. And so, for example, we staff for skilled trades like HVAC, and they're always looking now, but sometimes they're not. And so I'm always keeping my eye out for people. We always have that ad out. We're always talking to people, whether they're working or not, because I know I'm going to need them. And if I find a good one, if I don't have a client that's hiring for that particular position, I'm calling all of the other companies in a certain demographic to see if they're in need. 10 times out of 10 they are. So it's really easy to sell a candidate, especially if you know your market. I don't know if you're national, it's a little harder to do it that way, but being local and knowing the area and knowing the companies that are within that area, it's really easy to market people that, they may not be advertising for jobs for. And also, most companies don't advertise all their jobs anyway. So how would you know unless you tried?
Great point. And you're right. I've been in the past. Right now, we are national, but I've been in a situation before. Most of my career when I was on a desk, it wasn't a local market. And you're absolutely right. The more you get a feel for the climate and the players in your market, the more, when you meet a candidate, you get a sense of, I know where this person would like to work, and I know a company that would love to have them. And that type of knowledge, as you develop it over time, really, really helps, which is another reason why always talk to the talent in your vertical, regardless if you need them right now or not, or if they need you or not. Because if they're smart, they'll see the value in establishing a relationship with a professional recruiter, not so much for the immediate, but you just never know.
Oh, totally absolutely.
And you're totally right. Go for it, Leona.
I just wanted to interject on that too. Another thing, when you're talking to people that you don't necessarily have a job for, I'm nosy. I'm a recruiter. I'm super nosy, and I want to know where you're working. Why do you like it? I want to know who else do you think is hiring, and they might have some insight on the right person to even contact within their company, or, where to go to find people like them. So you never know unless you open up that window of conversation where that could lead you. So whenever we talk to candidates in general, I want to know, who did you work for? Why did you like that company? And if it sounds like a great opportunity, do you mind sharing that contact information for me? I want to call that company. They sound like
you will. But I totally agree with everything you guys said, because it's about communication. Something that I do, they check in with me every week. So HVAC, we do it over here in Pittsburgh. You know what? I have 2 or 3 check in every week. They're still got their job. Hey, my buddy's looking. He got in the field. It's that communications. Keep everything active at all times. And it's just a text. I tell everybody to text me. If they're texting me and say, hey, do you have a job right now? No. It keeps everything going. So when you do need them, boom, you can pull them off the bench. They're ready to play and get a job. And I think that's the big thing is we all in our industry, they want to search for new. We all want new. But in our backyard, everybody we already recruited is right on our team. All we do is go in our database and look. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. And I want to point something out, Richard. One of our audience members today, Beth Wood, has had some great comments during the show. And I agree with both of them in the sense that, yes, passive candidates are often in more demand, especially if you're doing direct hire. So you get someone who's not looking, that's always a great call. And she also added a point. We talk about proactively marketing these candidates to companies. She had a comment that I totally agree with. Talk to the candidate. Make sure you understand some of their significant accomplishments at their current and past employers, and use that as what is often termed sizzle to show how they can add value, as opposed to just presenting them as a vanilla, job title, so to speak. So I totally agree with you, Beth.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing, I say it all the time, energy, and excitement. You got to make them happy and excited. Just like we're on the show right now, you got to talk to your candidates that way too. Even if you don't have a position for them, hey, I'll find you something. You know what I mean? Give me some time. Let me work on it with you.
And for those of you who don't know Richard, he is not on any illegal substances. He is just wired like this all the time.
No, I get drug tested every day. I get drug tested myself every day. My own life.
But you're right. You gotta have the passion. You got to believe in what you're saying, believe in what you're doing. And that's why, again, when you're recruiting for talent, when you're talking to these folks, you've got to believe as a recruiter that at some point, whether or not you place this person or not, you can add value to their lives or their career in some way, shape, or form. So you've got to believe that about yourself. You've got to believe that about your industry, and that's got to come through, because if you don't believe that and you don't have that passion, how are we supposed to expect someone on the other end of a phone to believe that?
Exactly.
Right. They won't call you back if you sound like a dud. You have to be a bit of a cheerleader in this industry.
Exactly. And then
I've hired recruiters day one, on the interview, everybody is cheerleader. You wouldn't hire them, and you have to be very extroverted or at least act like it, in staffing, and have that enthusiasm. But I've hired people day one, they come in and they're just kind of a dud on the phone. I'm like, you got to go. You have to be somebody they want to call back. If you don't have that personality, even on your voicemail, they're not going to call you back. You just lost that opportunity.
Totally agree. 100%.
Exactly. And you know what? You guys are going to laugh about this, but you know what? I'm a job agent. I represent the candidate and the client and stuff like that. Just saying I'm a recruiter. I represent you. Just say that. It goes so far because they're like, wow, you're just not somebody blowing smoke up me because I had 10 recruiters call me today. I have that. I mean, we know in our industry what happens all the time, guys, right? I mean,
it puzzles me, but there's a lot of people out there that don't understand what we do. Mm-hmm. And hey, I think we could all agree there's some people in our industry that give our industry a really, really bad reputation. To those people, I always say thank you because it makes my job much easier to differentiate myself from them. But they've, if you take the time, to your point, Richard, to educate them on what we do and why we do it. And really, if we do our jobs right, everybody in the equation benefits from it. The company gets a really good employee. The employee gets a really good opportunity, and we get paid. So, understanding how that all works and how we can facilitate those relationships, broker those introductions. And, oh, by the way, we want you to get a lot of money in your job because if you get a lot of money in your job, that means that we're going to get a lot of money. And, oh, by the way, it doesn't come out of your paycheck. So sometimes they have to be educated because a lot of people just don't know.
Totally agree. I mean, that's where we're at. We negotiate all the time. Like we talked about last week, we can negotiate with the client. We negotiate with the candidate. And they have to know that. Going in, you know what? Sometimes they put out for a job somewhere on Monster or something like that. They never get a call. I call them up and say, hey, what jobs did you apply for? Show me 10 jobs you applied for, and I'll go after them for you. And I think that's a thing that we have to really enforce on this. When we talk to the candidates on the phone right off the bat, a lot of recruiters, not to knock them, but they say, these are the 3 jobs I have, blah, blah, blah. They don't listen. I think we have to listen to what they want.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they ghost us, because they're like, I don't want to do that job. I don't want an office job. I want a job where I can be hands-on. Then why are we forcing them on an office job?
Absolutely. I was just talking to one of the recruiters in my office about that today, about, the first question you ask, you shouldn't just dive right into the job description and the job that you want to fill. And granted, we need to fill these jobs, but you have to ask people, what is it you're looking for? What do you want? I know what you applied for, and I know what your experience is, but what do you want for your life? What kind of job do you see yourself in? Is it going to be a permanent one, a temporary one? Are you trying to start your own business, or, what is their end game? And that way you can kind of figure out if the opportunities you have might be a good fit for them, either long-term or temporary, or, are they job hoppers and they just need a paycheck, or are they career minded and they want an opportunity? And it will make me think about all the different clients that I have and where they might be a good fit. Or even you were mentioning, tell me about, the companies or the jobs that you're trying to get. I love a challenge. If I have a really good candidate and I want to market them, tell me 3 of the top companies you would love to work for here in this area, and I will go after them.
Yes.
And, be very specific about what company you want to work for and why. And, that's a great conversation for me to have, to get in with that company, instead of just, I have this person who has this skill set and let me market them to a company I think might use them. Take it a step further. Where exactly can they see themselves working? Have you applied and you haven't got a call back? Let me get that call.
That's an amazingly efficient recruiting strategy, and I totally agree with you. Sometimes people overthink the business, and sometimes you can get the business to help you along the way, help you do your own job. That's a great question to ask, because why spend some time and why overthink it? Like, where should I market this person? If the person says, hey, based on my skills, I've always thought about working at company A, company B, company C. Great. Those are the first 3 companies that I'm calling, because I know if I can get them in the door, they want to work there. So again, circling back, and you bring up a great point, Richard, and I totally agree with you, Leona. As recruiters, it's all about what they want, what the candidate wants, what's important to them. If we do our jobs right, even though recruiting is a sales role, we should never have to sell anything. we should always be presenting opportunities
Totally right.
that fall in line with what a person is looking for. Very rarely will you contradict your own words.
You summed it up, John. And this is something else that I talk about all the time. Recruiters, they get on the phone, they don't want rejection. So they're trying their best to grab that candidate and say, you know what, they're not a fit, but I'm just going to try to jam them in somewhere. Or they're on the phone for a minute and a half. I've worked for companies where a minute and a half, I don't know about you, but 1.5, I can't get nothing out in a minute and a half, can I? Maybe I can, but no. What do you guys think about that? I mean, you got to be on the phone and have a conversation, like a beer chat, a coffee chat. You got to get to know them.
Yes.
That's why they ghost a lot of, we see this all out there. They're ghosting me. Well, did you actually qualify them, or are you just throwing them somewhere?
You got to treat them like a person. Not as a resume, not as a fee, not as a placement. You got to treat them like a person. So I totally agree. And the more you get to know them, the more you're laying the groundwork for a longer term, more fruitful relationship, which is what our business is all about at the end of the day. And the more you get to know them, the more that there's a mutual trust that builds itself. If you're just looking at them and you're saying, all right, I need these skills, you have these skills, looks like a winner. That's not good enough. That's very superficial. That's just, but again, if you're doing that as a recruiter, keep doing it. I'm okay with that because it just makes my job easier.
You have to make sure it's a culture fit. We have a pharmaceutical manufacturing company where they hire hot and heavy, and they are a health-based company, and so that's their culture. They have exercises in the morning. People who are, anti-pharma, a lot of people are against big pharma now, probably not a good culture fit. So, you really have to find out, what that culture is with that client. And in addition to the skills, you have to make sure it's going to be a good match for your candidate, or they're not going to last long term.
On that note, and I'm sure you guys have done this as well, pre-COVID, one thing that I always found very important, just like when I worked in the local market, I would meet all my candidates in person and get to know them in person as opposed to on the phone. I would do the same with clients that I place people at. And I would want to go see them for that reason, Leona, that, I can't get a feel for your culture. You can tell me all this great stuff over the phone, but until I can walk the halls and see some faces and get a feel for the vibe, that really will take it over the hump as far as being able to sell that and understand it and present it to a candidate. Do you guys feel the same way?
I miss those days. I'm hoping they will come back very soon. We actually just reopened our office, and we've been closed with our door locked anyway for the past year, mostly virtual. Same thing with our clients. You can't come in, unless you have an appointment. You definitely can't do any type of, door knocking for new business. It's totally a different world trying to manage that, but things seem nationwide and definitely here in Colorado, like they're reopening. So I can't wait. I really miss that face-to-face relationship with our client and with our candidates. And we have had a lot of turnover, I think, and it's because of that. Because if you're just a voice on the phone or just a face online, it's not the same thing as having a personal relationship with your clients and your candidates, and they're not going to give you their all.
I think what this has taught us also is, as much as we think that people don't want human interaction, that they just want to be communicated with by email and text and work with job boards, et cetera, it's reiterated and reemphasized the fact that at the end of the day, people really do want human contact.
Yes, they do. Yep. And something else is virtual tours of a facility now are big. We're doing one on Friday to show the candidates what it's about, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to send anybody and they start their day and they walk out after 2 minutes. You know what I mean? That's not it. And what I think is big that we have to do, and I do this all the time, is job tours. Let them go on a tour before they even check out and accept the job, because maybe they're allergic to something. Maybe they don't like the climate. Maybe there's somebody there they don't like that they mesh with that from a bad relationship back in the day. So I think that's things that we have to do, and it takes time. John, you summed it up earlier. Time. We're not in a rush, everybody. There's time.
Well said. Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, not to coin a cheesy phrase, but you got to be in it for the long haul as a recruiter. You can't be at it for, those that go for the quick hit and the quick fee and the quick placement, they tend not to last very long because people pick up on that. And build those long-term relationships, cast a wide net, have a vast network with various different profiles and skill levels, and cultivate that network. To Leona's point earlier, make sure you're making those calls just to stay in touch with people. You don't always have to be calling with an ask. You can call with a give. You can give some information about what's going on in the market. Just see how they're doing, how they're coping with, what's going on with COVID. How has it impacted them? Show some genuine concern and empathy for the folks that you're dealing with, and be genuine about it. And that will come back tenfold to you.
Oh,
exactly. Yeah. And I think if they work hard for you, stop in sometimes and throw some gift cards out there if it's an Amazon card or something like that. Or say, hey, the next year of Netflix is on me. It's only $20 for Netflix for the whole year. That stuff goes a long way.
Really?
Simple things like that.
Hey, another listener, Eric, great comment. He was saying that one thing he does is after he has a conversation, he sends an email kind of summarizing and thanking them. Those little thank yous. Yeah. Little added touches. I remember, as old school as it is, every candidate that I interview, I would always send a handwritten postcard. Immediately after I got done the interview, I'd send them a postcard thanking them for the opportunity to assist with their career. And just so they got a little extra touch afterwards. Because again, it's that human touch. It's that human element. It's that follow-up. It's those little things. When you call a candidate on their birthday and you say, hey, just want to wish you happy birthday. It's like, yes. How did you remember? Well, you told me when we met. Oh, and by the way, I wrote it down and stored it in my ATS. So I set a reminder for myself to call you today. Again, recruiters can make the business work for you. And those little touches leave such an impression on people. That's how you really gain credibility and you differentiate yourself from a lot of the competition.
You're totally right. And then when COVID, once it goes away or whatever, and we can open back up, let's have some cookouts. I used to have a cookout once a year. Bring all your associates, their wives, their husbands, kids, and we just have a great cookout. I pay for the whole thing, but you know what? It connects everybody together.
We'll be expecting an invitation to the next one, Richard.
I knew it. Hey, make sure you bring some Johnny Walker with you when you come, all right?
I can do that. You take care of the brisket, I'll take care of the Johnny Walker.
But you see what we're coming by, everybody out there. It's about that human connection, just getting along with people, treat them like your family. I say this all the time. They're part of my workforce family. When they get hired, I send them an email that says, welcome to my family. You are part of me. I mean, seriously, without you, I don't have a job, right?
Well said.
And we have to understand that, because I think sometimes in our industry, there's we're here and they're there. We're equal, man. And I tell them that off the bat. I said, I'm your coach and you're the player, man. If you don't go to work, you lose a job, and I don't make any money, and I'm probably out of a job too. So you know what? We're both getting fired. So
I'm curious. I have a question for Leona, because you're in some industries that I don't have a lot of experience with, and I mainly want to focus on the light industrial space. How did COVID impact that part of your business, as far as, because you've got people that are working in various environments and production lines and warehouses, a lot of people. How did COVID impact the workforce and the companies that hire those workforces?
Well, our business increased. So I think manufacturing just really took off. Most of them were considered essential personnel because they were manufacturing anyway. Safety protocols, I was really impressed. All of our clients and all the companies I've heard of anyway, they got right on it immediately. They've got shields, everybody is wearing masks, they've got the safe distancing, everybody came out with policies and procedures for COVID and how to handle certain things, attendance issues, because of COVID, they were definitely more understanding. It really changed things for the good. If you can take a positive out of COVID and, how people feel about their job and how they're being treated, and that the company cares that they're being safe. They're having people go around and clean every touchable surface, and people have been really happy about that. And while we've had a lot of people who have had COVID, unfortunately, or have had to get tested or have been exposed, it hasn't really been exposures at work. So we've been pretty fortunate.
That's awesome.
I think people have also liked the fact that they've got a secure job, whereas we also staff for hospitality. That's gone. It never came back. And so they're really grateful that they even had a paycheck and they weren't laid off.
Well said. Yeah, there are certain markets that really took a hit and still haven't rebounded like we hope they will. Yeah, I'm curious down the road to see what's going to happen to commercial real estate, because there's a lot of companies also that are either going to a 100% virtual or at least a hybrid model. So all of a sudden, okay, I don't need 5 floors in this office building anymore.
Right.
What am I going to do now? So I think we haven't seen the last of the effects of this, but I agree with you in the sense that I think it's changed a lot of employers as far as how they manage their people. And they're a little bit more people-centric if they weren't prior, because they've had to be. There are certain people, you can't force someone to come back into work if they're afraid they're going to get COVID. If they could do their job remotely, it's like, well, okay, I guess I can't force you to do that. That's fine. Do your job. We'll figure out a way around it. And companies have been resilient and keeping the doors open and figuring out a way to keep as many people employed as possible and to adjust workflows accordingly based on what people needed individually. We talked about this before. You got people that are working from home, and if you've got a 2-parent household, both people work, both people are working from home. Let's say they got 3 kids and they're all high school or less. You've got 3 kids at home doing school. I mean, that's a lot of stress. And somehow people have found a way to make it work. So there is a lot of resiliency through this.
And I like how you said that, John, because basically here in Pittsburgh, I drove by yesterday to an industrial park, 3 cars in each parking lot. That was it.
Wow.
And we're talking about 150, 200 cars. And I've talked to some people, CEOs of companies, and they're like, our lease is going to run out. We're letting it run out. We're going to give the workers more money, more benefits, work from home. We can see everything they're doing because they're logging in. So I think a lot of C-level office administrative jobs are going to be working from home. I think it's going to be 100%, maybe come in 1 day a week. They don't have to pay the overhead and all that. So
we've had some of our, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to interject. We've had some medical clients that have gone virtual. They provide counseling services and they're fairly large. And so they've taken, because of COVID, they've taken their business virtual. So why do you need to show up in person for a counseling appointment? You can do a lot of those things virtually. I mean, if you've had to have a doctor's appointment, that's virtual now too, unless you absolutely need to come in. I mean, it's kind of a good thing. I know people say they miss that human interaction. So I like the hybrid idea. Completely virtual scares me, just because it's got a high burnout to it. But, if companies can, do a mixture, like you said, Richard, they definitely can benefit from that because they've got, their kids are at home, or, they don't have to worry about the exposure as much. I think it's a win-win. Agreed.
And you mentioned something that I personally was a little bit surprised to read about way back when. We were putting together some developmental training for our leadership on how to manage virtual teams, because our company had never been virtual in any way, shape, or form. And you're absolutely right, Leon, in the sense that when people are working virtually, the chance for burnout is exceedingly more than if they're working in an office. And, some people say, well, but they're working from home and, all this kind of stuff, but they end up working longer, harder. It's one-dimensional. The home is the office is the home. So there's no separation. Totally spot on with that.
Right on. And something else that I'm actually doing, I'm excited. My grand opening starts about a month from now. The All-Inclusive Workforce Center, something that we tapped into. We have a counselor on site for mental health, positive energy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
This is what is the wave of the future. So, it's exciting. We'll talk about
very
it.
Exciting.
We're going to have auto body. It's a 4,000 square foot facility. It's going to have welding right in the facility to train people. So it's going to be the Disney World of staffing here in Pittsburgh.
That is so awesome. I want to come out and see that.
Yeah, if you want out, there'll be coffee there and maybe a glass of wine if you want it.
Maybe. All right.
The whole mental health and wellness portion of that, I commend you on that, because that is something that is not thought of enough in the workplace. And it definitely, I think over the past year, we've seen that there is a need for it. And it's great for people to have some place or someone to go to, just to, would you rather an employee leave because they're burned out and frustrated, or would you rather them be able to go see someone on staff to kind of reset them? So that good for you, man. That's awesome.
Exactly. Especially, Leona will know this, in light industrial, we need this badly. I mean, it's all sectors, but we have to check in with them every week. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in our life and all this. They just need somebody to coach them and get them to the next level. And that's where the ghosting will disappear. And for me, it has. I mean, if anybody ghosts me, then, when I see them out, I'm not going to say hi to them. So like, no way, man. I need that fist pumping that energy. So, but all joking aside, any final thoughts, John and Leona, on all this good stuff that we talked about?
I will give Leona the floor first.
No, thanks. Well, no, I mean, just closing, what you're talking about as far as relationship building, I really, that is the only way we can recruit right now. We're all failing with job boards. We can't do job fairs or go out in the community. And so, we really need to, as recruiters and staffing, professionals, improve on the relationship building. I don't know how else we're going to find people if, we as an industry don't start doing that better.
Well said. Yeah. And just to circle back on the overarching theme of today's show, talk to as many people as you can within your recruiting vertical. Get to know them as people. Find out what's important to them, whether you have something for them or not. You don't always have to call them with a job. Call them to get to know them and figure out what's important in their lives. And then, oh, by the way, I might have an opportunity that makes sense for you based on what you've told me. So always be circulating yourselves and recruit for talent in your market and in your vertical. Don't stop recruiting for the jobs that you got to fill, but don't just be one-dimensional focusing on that. Build your network high and wide, deep and wide.
There it is. Passion, passion, passion. Let's all have more passion for our career, our jobs, and help everybody out there. There's a job for everybody. We just have to find it. Hey, till next week, same place, same time. Leona, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Leona.
Thank you.
Again in the near future. And John, like always, it's a pleasure, my man. We'll see you next week, guys.
All right, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Take care.
Yes.